at the end of the day, selling is transferring a feeling. If you don't have the feeling, you can't transfer it. If you don't have a good, positive feeling, dude, you're an actor. You have to sell and run your business from a place of positivity. And however you get there, God bless you. Episode 27 is brought to you by my book, Sell a Million. Get it on Amazon. It'll help you. You don't have to be in the furniture business, by the way, to get that book. Episode 27. I am so excited about it. Michael Magnuson and Jeff Cassidy from GoodBed are here, and they're going to catch us up on the latest, what's going on, do some highlights from the bedding conference if you didn't see it. And welcome to the show, guys.
Great to be here.
Thank you very much. Fantastic to be here.
Thanks for having us back.
No, my absolute pleasure. I whenever I see you, Mike, I think about this young guy stopping by the Sutherland showroom after hours at market, and you told me your idea, and I said, it's a great idea. Somebody really needs to do it. Oh man, I hope that our industry's up for it. And obviously they are. So Mike, catch us up. Give us some of the highlights. Well, here, let's do this first. Let's talk about, and very quickly, for somebody that's never seen you before, and for somebody that's never seen any of your presentations at the bedding conference, the dirty little secret in our industry about the mattress review mafia.
Well, the dirty little secret is that the mattress review sites are the biggest competitor that you probably don't know about or weren't focused on. And they are out there and they're competing with you with some really unfair advantages. So that's what I would say is the dirty little secret. They are out there basically selling the products that make them the most money. And the difference, the unfair advantage that they have is that they make this claim to be unbiased. And that gives them not only unfair advantages just on the face of it, but it gives them real economic advantages over you as well. Just as an example, like with advertising, an advertisement that says that somebody is an unbiased source gets higher click rates. And that means they don't have to pay as much per click in order to show that ad. And likewise, they have higher conversion rates because obviously people are more likely to believe something that comes from someone who says they're unbiased versus someone who is upfront about being a retailer. And so they're competing with you. They're getting it coming and going in terms of these unfair advantages. And they're out there dominating Google search results, making your stores really hard to find. And that's just basically making them the most insidious competitor that you have by far, and perhaps one of the biggest, if not the biggest.
Good morning. Good morning to whoever said good morning. I have a sneaking suspicion that's you, Alan. If you enable us to see your name, I would know for sure it's you. Anybody out there, if you want to make a comment, I love to see your comments. Just give them permission to show your name to me so that I know who you are. Sorry, Mike, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Not at all. I was at a natural break point.
Yeah, I was just going to jump in. One other thing that people don't necessarily know is how those sites are getting rolled up by professional investors and private equity and built into portfolios of these sites that still appear to the average consumer that they're independent. But behind the scenes, it would be one company running several of those sites. So just an additional aspect that gives them an advantage and is misleading to the consumer.
It's very misleading because Mrs. Jones actually believes that's another customer just like her, and all it is a possibly an employee, but for sure somebody who's being financially rewarded to push a certain product, and that's what she doesn't understand, and that's why it's so bad. But it gets worse when, because of the way it works, you have this situation where the Google results are getting slanted and they're getting Google juice. And the average good, hard working retailer who's trying to do it by the book is literally, pardon my French, getting screwed because they're getting those results. And then to make it even worse, Jeff, I love your point. Now you've got private equity jumping in. So, you know, it was evil to begin with. It's even more robustly evil now.
Yeah, they're pouring cash into these deceptive tactics to just accelerate their impact. So it's growing. And as Jeff pointed out, they're consolidating, which gives them more market power. And Mrs. Jones, in your example, thinks she's getting 3 or 4 different opinions or, you know, unbiased reviews. Really, she's getting 0 unbiased reviews. And in fact, she's not even getting 4 independent biased reviews. She's getting 4 reviews from the same company.
Yeah. Bought and paid for.
This is not necessary. This is also not unique to the mattress category. Obviously, we collectively here on this podcast, on this stream, care about the mattress category. But those portfolios and those private equity investors, they're doing this across categories. So it ties into a broader theme of what's happening for consumers when shopping for anything online. So it's a major macro level issue. Obviously, the most important to us is the mattress category.
And not just the most important, though. I mean, from everything, I'm astutely, just as a kind of an intellectually curious person, I'm always out talking to people in other industries about what's going on in their industry. And I've never found an industry in any of those conversations that is advanced in the deception as our industry. So we can feel proud that we are on the bleeding edge of consumer deception in the mattress review space. So
I'm only laughing because I really want to cry.
There's no crying in podcasts, Pete.
It's oh no, I can cry. It's my podcast, dude. You can't cry.
Podcast, I can cry if I want to. Yeah,
that's true.
So thank you for doing that and doing that so quickly. And Jeff, I was dying to ask that question, but I didn't want to ask the question because I didn't want to pull us off of mattresses. But in case somebody's out there in another industry, this is going to infect your industry. It's going to happen. It just got us first. It's coming your way. So start thinking about when we get into how to fight this, get your customers lined up to understand how they can fight back. But I want to go back to the bedding conference, and just in case there's somebody out there that missed it, I started to watch it and I got hammered so bad with so much work that I couldn't watch it. And you sent me that link, and that was wonderful. Thank you so much for sending me that link, Mike.
My pleasure.
Your talk was, it just literally, to me, it just literally started where the previous conference ended and then went a little bit further. And for those dealers that haven't seen it, I just want you to take a few minutes and walk us through that. Question for Mike. Question for Mike by Steve. Question.
Hi, Steve.
Would you recommend retailers partner with these B2B bed-in-a-box companies so they can capitalize on the biased reviews?
I wouldn't recommend it for that reason, but I do think that there are benefits to having those brands on your floor, and it stems more broadly from some things that they do well in the brand building and traffic interest generating department. So I wouldn't say for that reason, but I would say it's worth considering for other reasons.
Awesome.
And by the way, we also, not to plug our podcast on this podcast, but we did do a recent episode. If Steve, you probably heard it, but for those who haven't, we did an episode recently with Larry Miller of Sit and Sleep, where we specifically asked him his experience, because he was one of the earlier retailers to adopt, to bring bed-in-a-box brands onto his floor. And he carries now at least 3 maybe more on his floor. And so we specifically asked him about his experience with those brands, and wanted to give other retailers an idea of what to expect when you bring those retailers on your floor. And he gave some great insights on that as well. So definitely check that out. It's called Mic It Up. The podcast that we do is called Mic It Up, and the most recent episodes with Larry Miller.
Yeah, absolutely. You can plug your podcast at any time. I am an avid listener, and that interview that you did with Larry Miller was off the hook. You know, when the one thing that was the most striking to me was how balanced he was in his approach. He never looked at any question from just his eyes. He was looking at it from the consumer's eyes. He's looking at it from the manufacturer's eyes. The perspective that it's not an accident that this guy's been highly successful for 43 years. That's the kind of perspective that we all need to have to be super successful. But the one thing that kept coming back again and again is this guy is so concerned about fundamental fairness, something that's sorely lacking in this world and in business, not to go off on a tangent. But Larry Miller is a breath of fresh air, and he's a blessing. And, I know that I made the comment, and I know that you said it was all Larry, but you guys did a great job of asking really good questions that kind of kept peeling back the onion with Larry. And we got a really good insight into how his mind works. And to me, at the end of the day, that is one of the most fascinating things. And just one quick thing, and Steve's Mattress Industry Networking Group is one of the largest, if not the largest in the industry. It's a Facebook group that you guys should all belong to. If you're in the mattress industry, you should be in that group. There's a wonderful retailers in there, wonderful manufacturers in there, all kinds of people from the industry. It's a great place to be.
No doubt.
So back to the highlights of the bedding conference, which we've never got to.
We're working our way there. Got to keep people on the edge of their seats here.
Yeah, no doubt.
So do you want me to dive into that?
Yeah.
Okay, sure. Well, I think one of the things that, you're alluding to is I had presented some data last year coming at the time the bedding conference in 2020 took place. It was August of 2020. So we were 5 months or 4 or 5 months into the pandemic. And we had noticed some data on our side that I had shared at that time that was really stark in terms of illustrating the impact that the pandemic had already on the consumer journey. And specifically, it was, in the process of using GoodBed, people answer a question. It's not like a survey per se. It's just something they're telling us in the context of using our site to shop for a mattress, which is, do you need to try the mattress in a store before you buy it? And we asked them that just to help guide their search. And we've been asking that since the third quarter of 2015. So really like a year and change after Casper first came on the scene. And at that time, it was under 20% when we first started asking that question, who said that they didn't need to try it in a store. And I know for a fact it would have been single digits had I started asking that question, pre-Casper, because we did ask similar questions in a less consistent manner before then. And anyways, it basically rose steadily for several years from the time we started asking it. And ultimately, though, it plateaued. In about 2018, it just sort of leveled off at 43%. And it started to look like we had just reached sort of a natural equilibrium, if you will, where there was a certain number of people who kind of just fundamentally, irrespective of their age or whatever, they just, for this type of product, want to try it before they buy it. And when we saw that plateau, really, we can stratify the same data by age group and see that really like every age group sort of plateaued. So obviously the younger age groups plateaued at a higher number than the older age groups. They were more willing to try to buy without trying than the older age groups. but they all sort of plateaued, and the average across all age groups was 43%. Well, when COVID hit, every age group spiked immediately. And literally that aggregate 43%, which had been static for 2 years, shoots up to 71% in April of 2020. Now, it quickly settles down relatively quickly, so that by June, it's down about 53%. But that's 10 points higher than it had been. And so that's kind of the level it was in August of 2020 when I presented this data for the first time. And I updated it this May, last month, I guess, to share how it had changed. And basically the answer is it stepped down a smidge since then, but it's still around 51%. So we're still 8 points higher than we were. And that's more than a year later. And that's on a percentage basis. When you think about like that 43% essentially represented the addressable market for online mattress companies. And when you think about it in the context of that, an 8-point increase there is essentially a 20% increase in their addressable market. Yeah. So it's still a massive and very sudden step function change on a metric that had otherwise equilibrated. Yeah. And really wasn't increasing anymore. So that's kind of where that's gonna, I think my sense is at this point that we may see that number tick down a little bit more, but overall there's going to be a lasting step function impact of COVID in this regard. And we see it in other areas of our lives too. Like we're all using video conferencing more now than we did before. And I don't think that's entirely going away. I mean, we may not do Zoom happy hours all that much anymore, but we're still going to use a lot more video conferencing than we did pre-pandemic. And there's certain behavioral changes that I think will be lasting. And
I agree. You know, at CrossFit, I couldn't wait for us to not have to wear masks. And once we got to our stations, we could take our masks off. And so I find myself still wiping down all the equipment because I've done it for almost a year now. Yeah. And I don't have to wipe down the equipment, but it's like part of my ritual now. I wipe down the equipment and I don't have to. It's not required by the gym. It's not required by Ohio Department of Health, nothing. It's me. And so, you know, what you said really resonates with me. And you know, listen, I understand Zoom fatigue and all that. And listen, at some point, I'm pretty sure I had it as well. But for us to believe that video conferencing is going to go back to where it was before, it's not. It's actually not. Retailers save money by not having to send their buyers all over the place. Manufacturers save money by doing video conferencing in the first few steps of the sales process. At some point in time, we need to get together, but it's here to stay.
Yeah.
It's not. That's why in my podcast last week, when Victor said, all I heard is not changed. And I just said, bullshit. And of course, Victor went on to school me. And I was a little premature in my bullshit, but comment. And, you know, things have changed and they will change. But to Victor's point, and the point that he was trying to make before I so rudely interrupted it, is selling never changes. You know, do you have value? Do you increase someone's profits? Do you increase their sales? If you have value and you increase their profits, you increase their sales, that's at the heart of selling. And at the heart of selling is people communicating. And so that last number not moving but 2 points in the better part of a year is significant. If it moves at all, I'll be surprised, but it's not going to move much.
Yeah, I think the other thing that sort of underscores that is that when we do look at it stratified by age group, the younger groups have settled back down less than the older age groups. So the most of the settling, like if there's been a couple points of settling, it's mostly been older age groups returning to their normal pre-pandemic or closer to their pre-pandemic levels than the younger age groups. And obviously the younger age groups are the future of this market.
Yeah.
Right. They're the buyers who are going to be in this market for 30, 40 more years.
That's very interesting. Listen, I need to read something really quick out of my book, Sell a Million. And those of you at home who already have the book, you can probably pretty well predict the one I'm going to read with having these two fine gentlemen on. It's chapter 91, page 131, earn online reviews. Not pay for spammy ones, not trick somebody. You may not like technology or embrace the internet, but burying your head in the sand isn't going to make it go away. Either you earn and market 5-star online reviews, or your store will be the victim of online reviews. This was prophetic.
No doubt.
Your store deserves the 5-star online reviews that it earns to be seen by the public. You don't get 5-star online reviews, you earn them. Please reread that. If your customers are not giving you 5-star online reviews, you need to step back and start asking a lot of questions. The very first is, are you asking for them? How are you asking for them? When are you asking them? Are you helping your customers who are challenged by technology to give the 5-star review that your store has worked so hard for? Nothing that is good in life is easy. Does your sales process earn and ask for 5-star reviews? Your marketing must feature and model 5-star reviews. You must define for your customer the behaviors that ideal customers engage in. Those are given testimonials, referrals, and 5-star online reviews, as well as repeat purchases. These behaviors should be seen by your prospect before they purchase. They should be used to and modeled in your sales process, in all your follow-up marketing after the sale, and in your monthly newsletters. And the interesting thing is that a customer that has seen 5-star online reviews as part of your marketing, as part of your outreach program, if they've seen them, they're more likely to give you them because that's why they came in. When you're these behaviors should be seen by your prospect before they purchase. They should be used and modeled in all your sales process. I'm reading this twice. In all of your follow-up marketing after the sale and in your monthly newsletters. That's another subject that we'll talk about some other time. When your machine is running well, it produces an army of testimonials and 5-star online reviews that go to war every day, helping you win the battle for the customer's business. Is it a lot of work setting this up? Yes. Is it worth it? Yes. So I can't think of anything that would be more near and dear to your heart than that.
No, absolutely. You hit on so much. There's like so much there. It's a great little passage. I mean, the only thing I would add to it would be we typically tell people that it's a specific point. You have to not only have reviews in like one place that you decide is important. You have to have great reviews everywhere that your prospects are going.
Yes.
And so that includes not just Google, not just your own website, let's say, but it might include Facebook. It certainly includes GoodBed. So there's lots of places where your customers are going. Your online reputation more broadly needs to be great anywhere that your prospects are going. And so you can't just be like, oh yeah, we've got reviews, they're here.
So one of my buddies Dan Jordan, who wrote this book, can you guys see that?
Yeah.
Sales Proverbs. He just asked a great question. Dan asked the question, how do you make it easier for customers to leave reviews?
Well, yeah, typically the way we get this question is, how do we get reviews? And typically the answer I say is, number one, you have to ask, as you said. Yeah. And number two, you have to make it easy. So in terms of how to make it easy, I think the key is just minimizing friction, right? Like there's a certain amount of friction. People don't get out of bed in the morning typically and say, oh, today's the day I want to review that mattress store where I bought at. a month ago. Like they just, or if they do, it's probably not going to be a good review. Put it that way. It's those people who do get out of bed and say that are not the happy customers that you really want to hear from. So you got to make sure that you remove all the friction you possibly can from that process. So, for example, if you were to hand them a physical card and say like, hey, just type in this, web URL, go home to your computer, type in this URL, and then go there and write a review. There's a lot of friction there, right? Like they got to like take this card with them. They got to like bring it home. They got to remember to do it. They got to type it in. There's a lot of work there, right? Like versus if you email them a request and it's got a link right there, they can just click, right? So that's easy. Podium and other services like Podium, Simply Review Us, for example, they offer solutions that maybe even make it easier than that. They text you a link. So it's like right there on your phone moments after you leave the store. So those are some ways that you can kind of remove friction as it relates to collecting store reviews.
Hey, Brandon, I see you. And thank you for your suggestion. He puts a QR code on a business card. They scan the QR code. It takes them right to the review site.
Yeah, that certainly is a lot better than having the consumer type in the URL for sure.
Thank you, Brandon. That's very nice. Best group on Facebook for business owners. Thank you very much, Brandon. I appreciate it. So when we're talking about removing friction, walking through your different customers, and this is where we get into that whole discussion, Mike, about avatars. And there's probably 5 to 6 with an infinite number of variables that can change. But we really need to think about what do we do for a customer that wants to give us a review, but they really just they're not up for it. So if you're in a mattress store and it's slow and you've completed your sale and this customer is saying, you guys are awesome. You guys are awesome. You need to get really good at kind of putting your head down and saying, well, wow, thank you very much. You're not just saying that, are you? Oh no. Now they come up and they with energy, right? No. Would you say that? Oh, absolutely. Then you suggest that they can get on your computer and leave the review right now. If it's a slow day, you could do that. So that's an extreme example. Most customers, average age, very tech savvy, can do that. But some of your older customers might need their handheld. Here's my point. My point is this. You need to fight for every legitimate review. You've earned them. You deserve it. And it's real. It's authentic. And there's nothing better in this world for your business than a good 5-star online review. Mm-hmm. You have to fight for it. It's not easy. Nothing that's good in this life is easy. So fight for it. Do what you have to. The QR code on the business card is a great idea. There's lots of great ideas. Mike, I love your idea of you getting a good email and sending them the email, and all they got to do is basically push a link and fill in a couple things really easy, and there's your 5-star online review.
Right.
Yeah. One thing I would just add is I think getting emails is like a must. Obviously, you have to try and collect emails from every customer. But what we're seeing in terms of best practice is retailers who use tools like Podium or Simply Review Us that are text-based, and they use that to try and generate the store review while the consumer is still in the store. Basically, right after they've agreed to make the purchase, and the RSA is about to write up the sale, and they say, do you mind while I'm writing this up, if I just text you a quick link and you can write a quick store review? And one way to think about that is everybody understands the importance of once the customer leaves this, once a shopper leaves your store, the probability of them buying goes way down, right? So salespeople just intuitively understand that. The same is true with writing a store review. Once that person leaves the store, just as Mike was saying, their life happens. They have to remember where their car keys are, and they have to remember what's next on their to-do list, and it's easy for life to get in the way. Yeah. So I think your yield is much higher if you ask while they're still in the store. I also think that there's a psychology involved when you do that, because you're texting the link, the person is there in the store. They've just decided, by the way, that they trust you enough to make the purchase from you, right? So the trust level is high at that point. Yeah. But also psychologically, they have to leave a review for a human being who they're sitting there kind of looking at. And they're more likely, I think, to leave a positive review while they're there in person together with the salesperson who just made the sale. So I think the great thing is that there are tools now like Podium and Simply Review Us that make it easy to do this via text, and it gives you the opportunity to do that store review requests in person right in the store.
So to sum up what Jeff just said, do it now, right now, while they're still in the store. It's great advice, Jeff. I'm glad that you brought that up.
It's not my advice. It's just from what we see, the people who are getting lots of store reviews, like that's what they're doing. So it's their advice.
Yeah. Well, listen, that's what we do. We share good ideas that we hear from other people, right? So that's that was very helpful. So Mike, one of the things, here we go. Another question. Brandon, what are you doing? You're hijacking my show. Thank you. I love every question. We asked them to scan the QR code while in the store. I agree with Jeff 100%.
Yeah, Brandon.
We even put the QR code on a sign on the way out the door. And Jeff will send you the $20 later, Brandon.
Only if I get a QR code. I only do it if I get a QR code.
Don't let that go to your head, Jeff. Come on.
I got to celebrate my one success. Come on,
yes, we got to celebrate all successes. So one of the things that really interested me in the talk that you did at the Bed-In conference, Mike, towards the end of it, you talked about, and I want you to do it again, just in case somebody didn't see it, because this is really important for our dealers to understand. The privacy laws have changed, and can you kind of walk through that, and how it could impact their media selection and how their message gets out?
Yeah, well, the changes are kind of ongoing. There's like a theme here that's been happening for the past several years, where we're just the trends are moving in favor of more privacy and limitations on placing limitations on companies' abilities to track you. And the most recent example of this is the changes that Apple made in this most recent version of their operating system, where they've essentially made it that the apps that previously just had the ability to silently track your behavior through not only just what you were doing on their app, but even just what you do when you leave their app on your browser, on your phone, for example. Those defaults have changed so that now those same apps have to ask your permission to be able to do that. And what we've been seeing is that, first of all, when the apps started to ask permission, the number of people who say, sure, go ahead and track my behavior across apps, not surprisingly, is pretty low. Not a lot of people are, psyched about that idea when they're actually presented with it. And so they were seeing, opt-in rates of single digits. And so then they got panicked and they stopped asking, because they only get one chance to ask. And so now they're starting to ask. They tried to A/B test, and I've gotten ones from Facebook, from Twitter, and And every time I'm like, no, I don't want you to track me. This is why I only see mattress ads everywhere, everywhere I go, is because of this. And so obviously, most people don't want to be tracked. They would rather have privacy. And so this is going to massively impact the ability of a lot of media platforms to offer targeted advertising to advertisers. The reason why my Facebook is able to say, hey, here's an audience of active mattress shoppers, is because they've been tracking this stuff in the background without people knowing it. That's the sort of secret there. And because it's not like people go on Facebook and say, oh, in their profile, like, oh, I'm an active mattress shopper. No, they say like, I'm single, I live in Denver, I like mountain biking, things like that. But they don't say like, I'm an active mattress shopper. That's an ephemeral status that they have, and they don't share that. So there's no way for Facebook to know that other than to secretly track your behavior. So basically, this is going to radically affect the effectiveness of Facebook marketing, not only in terms of being able to offer a really good audience to you, but also to the extent that you were previously able to actually concretely measure conversions. That was another thing Facebook could offer, is they could say, they basically track it all the way through the shopping cart, and they see the conversion happen, and they go, hey, see that one that we sent you? They ended up buying. Well, now they can't do that either. So you're operating with less information and a smaller or less valuable audience. So just something to be bearing in mind. And at the same time, of course, it doesn't diminish the value of reaching active shoppers. That is still, in our view, should be, well, we always think about advertising as a hierarchy of priority. Like, number one is your online reputation. You got to make sure that's great everywhere your prospects are going, because that's the thing that if your ad gets their attention, well, the first thing they're going to do is go online, and they're going to see a bad reputation, and you'll lose them anyway. So you got to make sure the online reputation is great. But then number two, you got to hit those active mattress shoppers. That's like your next biggest priority. And that comes way before your last priority, which is kind of general advertising, television, newspaper, radio, whatever you're doing, which is not to say that you shouldn't do any of that last thing, but it's you got to view that as, that's like the bonus stuff. That's like,
right.
You got money left over, great, invest it. That's like, there's a longer term, you're building something longer term there, but you got to get the base hits right in front of you, which is those active mattress shoppers. And that's going to get a little harder now.
This point that you're making, and that you made so eloquently, I want to break it apart just a little bit. So if you own a store, I want you to envision your advertising dollars. Okay. All of your advertising dollars in a bucket. If your online reputation isn't stellar, there's a hole in your bucket.
That's right.
And you're throwing your money away. You're throwing your money away. So you got to fix that first before you ever do anything else. And the one little comment that I would like to make, Mike, and you made it, I just want to drive it home even a little bit further. Whatever it is that you do, whatever your mix is, and we've seen, I had Trent Randberger on here a couple weeks ago, and Trent did a
Was
great
it Trent
job.
or Little Trent?
No, Little Trent was not available.
Okay, it was Trent.
He
okay.
was in the background. So I had Big Trent. And, when Trent started his business, it was radio, newspaper, and TV, right? And that's it. And there was no social media. And one of the things that we've seen with all retailers is a lot of money being put into social media, and in particular, Facebook. And so the point that Mike is making here is important. Keep your eye on your mix, and you need to be on Facebook. But if it's not going to be as effective as it used to be, you might want to put some dollars, not all dollars, in other things to help subsidize it. One of the things that I would do if I was a retailer, I would put almost all my money into this online reputation. And that's a lot of things. And I want you to break that apart just a little bit for us, Mike. And then I want you to talk about how we fight the mattress review mafia.
Absolutely. Well, first, I want to just make one distinction. Well, it's not a distinction in anything you said, but I think it's just adding a distinction to the way people think about media, perhaps, which is people tend to think about it like, oh, I did radio, TV, I did digital. Maybe they think, oh, I did some stuff with Google, some stuff with Facebook. Like they break it down that way. I would think about it in terms of this. When you get to online reputation, that's one. Number two, the active mattress shoppers. Number three, general population type stuff, untargeted. And think of it that way, because a lot of times you think, oh, well, I did a bunch of Facebook stuff. Well, not all Facebook stuff is targeted at active mattress shoppers. Some of that's general, right? Like not all stuff you do with Google. If you just do a display ad campaign, that might just be like a general display ad campaign. That's different. Like that goes in the third bucket. Like if you're doing search targeted at mattress keywords, okay, that's the second bucket. Like those are active shoppers. If you're buying specific audiences on Facebook that are targeted at active shoppers, who are people who are in market right now, that's in the second bucket. But you got to think about it in terms of those buckets. It doesn't really matter where. I mean, it matters, but it's a less important distinction whether you're doing that on Facebook, Google, GoodBed, what matters more is where are you putting the money in terms of which buckets. And those that's the important thing. And people sometimes conflate. They say like, oh, digital, and it's almost like the assumption is that if you're doing digital advertising, it's the second bucket. But the reality is a lot of digital advertising is not. It's not any more targeted than your TV ad. Right. And that's an important thing to think about. So sorry, what was your question that you were going to point me to? How
do our store owners fight the mattress review mafia?
Yeah. Well, this kind of ties in. There's a lot of things we could do, obviously, as an industry. I think education, I consider that to be like defense, right? Like you got to do some defense here, which is educating your consumers on the truth. I mean, these guys do have everything that they do and all the success they've had is predicated on this one fundamental and it turns out pretty flimsy thing, which is that people think they're trustworthy. And I say flimsy because the reality is if people knew the truth about these websites, I don't think most people would think that they are trustworthy. Exactly. I think very few people would think they're trustworthy. So in that sense, it's all kind of a house of cards with these sites. And the way to play defense is to just educate your consumers with the truth about these sites. Let them know about the ties between online brands and these sites. Let them know about all the deceptive tactics that they're using. Let them know about the fact that these best mattress lists are pay to play. And they're just basically a ranking of like who bid the highest to be ranked the best mattress for whatever by whoever. And so you got to let your consumers know about that. And you got to hit them with that message like all over the place because they're getting hit with the opposite message from these review sites all over the place. So you got to make that message, it's sort of like an equal and opposite force you got to create to counterbalance what otherwise is poisoning their minds with stuff that's essentially going to drive them to buy from these online retailers, but more specifically, that's going to design to take them away from ever visiting a physical store. And so that's important. Defense is important, but defense isn't enough. Offense, you need to go on offense as well. And the way to go on offense is you've got to have what consumers are looking for. Right. And what they're looking for fundamentally when they're searching, and this is why these websites keep popping up everywhere, is they're looking for third-party validation. Right. They're searching for reviews, comparisons, best this or that. They're looking for third-party validation. And these review sites claim to be that third-party validation. And So that's what fuels their success. The original, the sort of the OG of third-party validation is consumer reviews. And so we've talked a lot about store reviews today, but the other really critical part of the reviews picture for a retailer is product reviews. And fundamentally, the industry has had a problem up until now, which is retailers can't get a critical mass of product reviews for the products they carry. Just mathematically, it doesn't work.
Yep.
You know, if you've got one store, maybe you sell 1,000 mattresses a year, maybe you send out, even if you emailed every single one of them and you got 3% of them to say, write a review. What do you end up with at the end of the year? 30 reviews, right? You probably carry 50 products. That's less than one review per product. So you do that for 2 years. Now you got almost 2 reviews per product. And then guess what? Your manufacturers change every product, and now you start over at 0. And so, so there you go. So there's a fundamental problem. That's if you have one store, but the math is still really pretty much terrible. Even if you've got 50 stores, you're probably talking about a year to reach critical mass of reviews for your products. And Mike, again,
I got to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Steve, what do you think, Steve? You think this is your podcast, brother? You got to get your own podcast. Steve, who runs Mattress Industry Network, which is a fabulous group. Mike, great point. Most advertising companies still use CPM for online ads, which is completely irrelevant in online marketing if your goal is in market shoppers. That's Steve's.
Mm-hmm.
And he wanted me to share.
Yeah, he's making a great point, building on that distinction that I was trying to get people to focus on. Like, it's not just about being digital. It's about which of those buckets it falls into.
Getting to critical mass is very difficult to achieve. That's where we were.
It's basically been impossible, except for maybe the largest retailers. Like if you've got 2,000 stores, that's a different story. But the vast majority of this industry doesn't have enough stores, enough volume of sales to get to critical mass quickly enough. And critical mass is really important, right? Because we all know as shoppers ourselves, you know, if you see a product with one review, you know, like a lot of people are just gonna be like, I don't know, I don't feel confident enough to buy a product without more feedback on it. And B, if you see one review, you're also likely to think, wow, like, I guess nobody likes this product. I guess nobody buys it. It's like the least popular product, right? So you draw these conclusions as a shopper. We all know it because we do it with other things we shop for. And there's a certain level of reviews, and there's no science that I know of that says exactly what this is, but we can all kind of just anecdotally go, all right, well, if a mattress has, say, like 30 reviews, okay, like that's enough where I'm like, okay, people have bought this. There's some history here with this product. I can look at some of those reviews and get a good sense of like what people's feedback has been on it. Like, I'm feeling confident, right? And if it's got 100 reviews, then I'm like, or more, then I'm like, oh, wow, I've got no doubts, right? Like, I'll still read some, maybe whatever, get a sense of what they're saying, but like, it removes any doubt, right? Like, but if it's like 12, maybe I'm like, okay, like that's better, but I still have some questions. I'm still, and maybe some people are going to be more swayed by this than others, but there's going to be a group of people who are like, that's still not enough for me to feel confident, you know? And so you're going to basically, as you have fewer reviews, it's basically makes the product harder to sell. That's the bottom line. You get more reviews, it's easier to sell. There's fundamentally. So the question is, like, how does the industry get beyond this problem where no retailers can get to that critical mass? And this is where we've been behind the scenes working real closely with retailers in trying to figure this out for them and figure out how we can bring to bear all that we have figured out as it relates to reviews and all this huge platform that we've created over 10 years. And how can we bring all that to bear for the benefit of retailers. And the result of that is something that I announced at the very end of that bedding conference talk called the GoodBed Review Network. And so we basically, that was the first time I announced it, but we've been working on this behind the scenes since the fall. And essentially the idea is that this is a solution that helps retailers get to critical mass of product reviews and to do it much more quickly. And if you think about the math that I just went through with regards to one store, well, imagine you've got 500 stores in a network, right? Like, and every review that comes in goes into that network, right? So that it's being pooled together with all the reviews being collected across the network for that same product. And then that review, along with all those other reviews, goes to the benefit of every retailer that product. So you have 500 store locations across who knows how many different retailers, and maybe they carry 300 products between them. And then we help those stores get reviews. And P.S., we can help you get a higher yield than you can get on your own. And that's partly because of the fact that we've optimized our platform to make it easier, to the point we were talking about earlier, and like in certain ways of removing friction. But it's also in large part because we're an independent platform and people are just more open to and inclined to share a review when they're asked to write it on an independent platform than on the retailer's website. So we benefit from that respect. And then we can help you between, sorry, I should have silenced my computer. Everything started buzzing and vibrating. Phone call. But what I was saying is basically the math, if you've got 500 stores in this network, then basically we can help you get any participating store or retailer can get to critical mass within 3 months, let's say. That's like how that math works. And then as we get this to scale and we get like even more retailers participating, we get this number down to 1 month or less. So a new product hits the market, within a month, every retailer who carries that product can be at critical mass of reviews on that product. And we do that through basically making this platform of ours a clearinghouse that benefits all retailers who participate.
That's unbelievable. So we have a store owner who for some reason has never heard of you before, doesn't know who GoodBed is, and they said, holy, I want in on this. What do they need to do? How do they reach out to you?
Email. They should just get Jeff@goodbed.com, Mike@goodbed.com. Real easy. But yeah, they should reach out to us. Basically, what we're doing right now is putting together a beta program. And then the cool thing about the beta program is it's going to be free. So we're wanting to basically take the next few months to put together this beta program, start collecting reviews, build up the initial base of reviews to really kickstart the network. And we're going to be, in exchange for, just working through that with us, we're offering that to a select group of beta retailers for free. And so that's the best thing to do, is reach out to us. We're trying to figure out like the right mix of retailers to include in that beta program. But that's the idea. And then once we sort of figure that out, once we sort of complete the beta program and get it to the point where we feel like it's ready for mass release, then we'll open it up to everybody.
Whoever said this is, it just says Facebook user. So I don't know who it is. You ain't in the mattress business if you don't know about GoodBed. Yes, I agree. 1,000% that you ain't in the mattress business if you don't know about GoodBed. Whoever
Thanks,
you
Mom.
are. No, I see it says it's not your mom. So listen, if you own a store and you just heard what Mike said, you can join a beta program for free and test this out. Hey, Jeff Giannakovo. It was Jeff Giannakovo, so it wasn't your mom. And listen, when you have a guy like Jeff, who's one of the leaders in our industry, who's makes a statement like that, maybe you already knew that you arrived, but now you really know that you've arrived. When you Brandon Brewer, that's a great idea, guys. There you go.
Thank you.
You're getting feedback already.
That's great.
So, Jeff, you got something?
No. I just liking the feedback and appreciate the shout outs.
Thank you to both Jeff and Brandon. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're super excited. And honestly, I'm not one for hyperbole, but I fundamentally think this is a game changer for retailers. This product review problem is a serious problem. And it's one that has been holding retailers back relative to these online competitors, not only the review sites that we talked about who claim to provide third-party validation on their own, but also just relative to the online retailers who are fundamentally advantaged in getting reviews and so forth. So this, I think, is a fundamental game changer for the brick and mortar side of this industry. And we're just psyched. We couldn't be more psyched to be able to help retailers with this problem. So this is one of the most fired up we've ever been, really, to help with this.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting because there just has not been a solution for the traditional industry here. It just has not existed. And when you think about the consumer, they go online, like Mike said, the online brands are advantaged, right? Like they automatically get the email. They have an email post-sale process to request reviews. They have thousands of great reviews. So the consumer is seeing that for online brands, and then they go to look at the local options. They look at both store reviews and then product reviews. So we've had a challenge with store reviews. Luckily, solutions are helping to solve that problem. But then they get to store reviews, and it's the issue that Mike talked about. It's product reviews. Sorry. Yeah. Yep. It's one or none or a couple, and they're 3 stars on average of those couple. So it's just been a losing proposition on the review front for the traditional side of the industry. And we're thrilled to be able to bring a solution to that problem.
So I don't want to put you guys on the spot, but how soon are you going to start executing on the beta program?
Well, we're starting to think about who's going to be in that beta program now. So that's all coming together as we speak. And we're at the same time working on sort of the finishing touches, I would say, on the first phase of development for this, which is on the review generation tools that we'll be offering to retailers. And then we'll be in parallel with that, we'll be starting to work on the display tools to help those reviews get displayed. We've already got an API so that those reviews can be displayed right now, but we're going to be working on additional tools that will provide other ways to display these reviews on your website for those retailers who are participating.
And one thing you said, Mike, in your bedding conference talk that I really liked how you put it, which is this is an industry that really is based on relationships, right? And people really appreciate and value the relationships, and there's good relationships and positive energy between people. And this solution leverages that, right? Like that shared review aspect is all retailers collaborating together to solve this problem that's a challenge to all of them. So I like the way that you put that about it's a solution that lets us leverage the fact that this industry is built on relationships, and it helps us use those to our advantage.
No doubt.
Guys, I wish I had another hour because I could go on and on and on. Any last words, Mike, you want to wrap up with? This is so exciting. If you're a store owner out there and you're wondering, what could you do to help your business, try to get in on this beta program. You may not get picked, but the second it comes live, if you don't get picked for the beta program, jump on this because this is a game changer. It's absolutely a game changer.
The only other closing word I would say is reach out to us anyways, because there's other things too that we can do with you guys. We got actually a whole suite of other products that we've been developing specifically for brick and mortar retailers to help them get discovered by shoppers on our site. And that's something completely separate and apart from this review network, which is really about your website and helping your website get discovered and helping conversion from your website to your store and from your store to ultimate sales, from store visits to sales. These other tools are really about getting discovered by the active shoppers who are on GoodBed. And those are also very cool, and we'll be coming to market with those. We've already started taking signups for those, and we started rolling out the very beginnings of those features, and they'll be coming out a lot more in the next month. So get in touch with us about that as well.
I think Jeff Janakovo said, thanks for everything you do in the industry. And
likewise
to you, Jeff. Yeah.
Brandon jumped in there too, and I can't see his comment anymore. I agree too. Facebook user, Brandon. So
Thank you,
listen,
Brandon.
this is exciting. The guys are completely engaged. They're excited about this. And I think you guys are onto something that is so good for our industry. Thank you guys for coming up. Yes, go see Mike It Up. I do not miss an episode. Go to GoodBed. Guys, get behind what Mike and Jeff are doing. What they are doing is so aligned with what we need to do as an industry. There is not another company out there who is more aligned with the little and the medium size retailers to help you grow your business and who are really, truly, deeply concerned about what's going on. So with that, I say goodbye and thank you for a great episode, guys. I appreciate you.
Thank you so
Pete.
much, Pete. Appreciate
and thanks to everybody
support.
who was listening and commenting. That was great.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
This was fun. Thank you.
Thanks.